I'm Scott Coolidge for Cool Pictures News here at the Discovery North Bay Museum location on Oak Street. Cool Pictures News has learned that when they say that they want to move the Dionne Quints home down to the waterfront, they don't mean where the bandshell is. They actually mean here at the Discovery North Bay Museum location. Now, Cool Pictures caught up with Jeff Fournier. He's the chair of the Friends of the Dionne Quints Home Museum, and he was letting us know what he was doing to fight to keep the Dionne Quints Museum here in North Bay and what you can do to help.
My name is Jeff Fournier, and I'm the chair of the Dionne Quints Home Museum, Friends of the Dionne Quints Home Museum. And I started a petition going back to October 15th of this year to save the home and to keep it in North Bay. We want it to stay in North Bay. We want it to be declared a heritage site under the Ontario Heritage Act. So the city has decided that they're going to sell the property where it now sits, and so it will have to be moved. I've been trying to fight to keep it in North Bay, along with our committee and a number of concerned citizens who believe that the home has a lot of heritage value and historic value. The quintuplets and their story has added greatly to the economy of North Bay and area. The home has been in North Bay since 1962. It was purchased by a private individual back then from some of the Dionnes. Since then, back in '85, the city of North Bay purchased the home through the efforts of a group of concerned citizens who wanted the home to stay here because it would potentially was going to go down to Niagara Falls at that time back in '85. So a fundraising committee was put together, and approximately $105,000 was raised by the people of North Bay to purchase it. It wasn't quite enough, so the provincial government kicked in the rest. The purchase price was $220,000. So the provincial government kicked in about $115,000. So the city took ownership of it, but they never actually paid for it. One of the things that I pointed out to the councillors was the city does not place really very little, if any, value on heritage in the city. Many of our former heritage buildings, beautiful ones such as the old post office and the city hall and even John Ferguson's house, they were torn down, and now we have the Dionne Quints home, which could actually leave North Bay, so it's basically being stripped from the citizens. The chair of the operating committee for the North Bay Museum has stated that the museum is not interested in keeping the Dionne home or even operating it. It's too bad because I think they're missing out on something good. One of the reasons I know is that they don't get any funding whatsoever from the city for operating the museum. They don't get money for curation. They don't get money for any kind of artifact preservation, restoration. They don't get money for events or any kind of exhibitions. So the only money that's given to the museum is for the waterfront park around the museum, and that money is given right back to the city to maintain the park and also the public washrooms and a few other things related to the building that the city owns. So they don't actually give money for heritage or for any studies whatsoever, or even for the employees at the museum. Right now there's currently one employee, and there's another employee on a government grant, and the curator of the museum, the one employee, full-time employee, works from government grants only. And unlike many other municipal museums, such as Callander, who has an employee that takes care of the Callander Bay Heritage Museum, they have one employee who's a municipal employee. Sturgeon Falls has municipal employees who are employed by the town of West Nipissing to take care of the Sturgeon River House Museum. I can go on throughout Ontario. Arn Prior, for example, they have an employee that's paid by the municipality. The small township of Nipissing, which has 1,629 people, they actually have a budget line as well as all those other communities I pointed out that have, they allocate $35,000 a year to the Nipissing Township Museum. Now that's a community of 1,629 people. They're able to do that. And North Bay gives zero. And so that's what we are saying, that they should allocate some money towards heritage. And even though the museum is going on record as saying, the chair saying they don't want the museum, I still think the museum has value, the North Bay Museum, and I think that if they got proper funding, they may change their tune. We definitely want to work with the city. That would be our intent, is to work with them. So I and my vice chair, Joshua Pride, have mentioned, we've actually brought forth to the city the fact that we would donate our services to help determine how we will keep the Dionne home in the city. We would like to work with Community Services, the manager of Community Services, and the urban planning department, and we would hope that some of the area curators could get involved as well as consultants and people that know the business of curation and the value of history and heritage. We believe that they should be putting some money into keeping the home here and operating it. City Council has kind of scared the citizens into thinking that if we keep it, we're going to have to raise taxes. Because the city is not giving any money to heritage, we think that some money from other areas could be allocated without raising taxes. Mark King mentioned that it would cost about $80,000 a year to operate it on an ongoing basis. I think that's a little bit high, but even if we go with that figure, being that the city's budget is $119 million, $80,000 a year would be less than 0.001% of the total overall operating budget for the city. So if you put that into perspective, a person who's making, let's say a family who's making $50,000 a year, if they were asked to take 0.001% of their annual salary, that would amount to $50. So for this city the size of North Bay, it's a very small amount. If city decided they had absolutely no money to allocate to heritage and to the Dionne home, and they decided we're going to have to raise taxes, that would amount to maybe about $2 per person in the city, even less to operate that home per year. We believe that the home has a lot of potential if it's properly marketed, properly promoted, and moved to a better location, possibly at the museum in the downtown area. We believe that the foot traffic would increase and that we could actually generate some revenue from the museum. So the operating costs wouldn't be a total loss as the city is making it out to be. I guess I will say one thing. I mean, the majority of people that I talk to and that state their views on Facebook or elsewhere in the editorials, most of them are positive and would like to keep the home in North Bay. There's a number of people that, they say, well, I don't want to spend money on this. Why should I spend money on this? And what I say to that is anybody who says that, if they're bucking for a pay-for-use system, I don't have kids in school anymore, should I not pay for any educational taxes? I haven't used the hospital in a number of years. Should I say, well, I shouldn't pay for that until I have to use it? I haven't gone to a battalion game ever, actually. Should I not pay for that? And I'm willing to pay my fair share. I think I'm paying more than my fair share for certain things in this city, and I think I have a right, and I think anybody else has a right who cares about our heritage and our history to have some of our tax dollars go towards the Dionne home or heritage in general. And I think that what people can do is they can tell the mayor that. It's a phone call to the mayor, a phone call to Mark King, who's the councillor in charge of this portfolio, an email. Tell them that, why can't you spend some money on heritage? We want money spent on heritage, and we're not, and we don't believe, like, basically, what Mark King has been saying is that we're going to have to raise taxes if we keep the Dionne home. And like I've said before, I mean, really, maybe $2 if you raised it per person. But I mean, he can dispute that figure. I mean, it's semantics, really. It's going to cost something if you don't allocate any funds from anywhere else. But it's such a minuscule amount. But I truly believe that the people have to voice their concerns, their opinions. And anybody who's against the Dionne home because they don't want to pay for it, then anybody else who doesn't use the arenas or the beaches or the schools or the medical system, then I guess they should not be paying for that. Everybody in a society like what we're living in, sometimes you pay for things that you don't necessarily use, and that's the way it works. And I'm perfectly willing to pay my school taxes, and I'm perfectly willing to pay some towards the arena. Not as much as what I have paid. I think there's too much of my tax dollar paid towards that, but I think it's a good thing, and we have to put money towards sports and recreation. I had somebody else say, accuse me of, well, I don't want people to be healthy because if we don't have the arenas, and I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is if we're really concerned about recreation, what we do is we put money into the outdoor rinks, which they have basically not put any money into for years. When I was a kid, everybody used the outdoor rinks, and now we have to have these arenas. A lot of the guys that I went to school with, I never was a hockey player, but they played in a playground league outside. And I'm not saying we should return to those days, but I don't think that it's a matter of recreation and health when you're talking about the arenas, because there are other ways you can play hockey outside, but the city has decided to scrap that. I don't know exactly what they put towards outdoor arenas now, but I know people that when they finally Parks and Rec, when they gave up on keeping the arenas up, private citizens, because I helped with some of the arenas, would go out and flood the rinks and shovel them and that. And I did that, a bit of shoveling myself and that type of thing. So I think the citizens of North Bay have to speak up, and they have to say to the mayor, and they have to say to the councillor, Mark King, they have to say, like, keep the Dionne home here and put some money towards it. And the last thing would be, we are looking at doing some fundraising. Support the fundraisers, and if you would like to volunteer, we'd like to hear from you. You can go to our Facebook page at Save the Dionne Home, and we're working on we are almost finished a web page, and you can go to the Facebook page for sure and offer your services up. And I know I've already had some offers of volunteering. So if we were operating the Dionne home, we have to have some kind of curator for sure. It doesn't have to be full-time. The curator wasn't full-time when the Chamber of Commerce looked after the building or after the museum. But we do need people to give tours and that. And I think we can do it. I think we have 400 people are volunteering for the Heritage Gardeners. What a fantastic group of volunteers there. And hundreds of other people volunteer for even the Discovery North Bay Museum and for the little train. My dad has been a volunteer for over 20 years on the little train, and I think we can get some volunteers to help out there so we can keep the costs down for sure. Like any history has the light and the dark, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
I mean, if we look at the World Wars, for example, there was terrible things happen, people getting killed and maimed and raped and tortured and held in prisoner of war camps, and from all parties, from the Germans, Japanese, Canadians, Americans. I mean, they all had their thing. They did what they have to do. Does that mean we don't recall, we forget about Remembrance Day, or we tear down all of our cenotaphs? Of course not. Of course not. We honor them, and that's what we want to do with the Quints. We want to honor them and their memory, and we want to tell the story, the good and the bad, whatever that may be. And they didn't tear down all of the concentration camps, because that was probably one of the most terrible things that's ever happened in history at all. And they didn't tear it down. They didn't tear down Anne Frank's house and say, "Oh no, it's run as a museum." And that was a terrible thing that happened. But I mean, you try to learn from your mistakes, right? So.
At the December 12, 2016 City Council meeting, many people from North Bay came to plead their case to ask to keep the Dionne Quints home here in North Bay. Now, at least 3 people at that meeting said that if they were willing to keep the Dionne Quints home here in North Bay, they would be willing to volunteer their time to help with the upkeep of the museum. And of course, we know that one of those people was Jeff Fournier, the chair of the Friends of the Dionne Quints Home Museum. City councilors didn't have much to say at the December 12th City Council meeting about the Dionne Quints home, but they were willing to listen to members of the public and how they felt about the matter. City Council won't speak again about the Dionne Quints home until the new year in 2017. For Cool Pictures News, I'm Scott Coolidge, standing at the Discovery North Bay Museum here at Oak Street in North Bay. It's one of the proposed locations for the Dionne Quints Museum. Cool Pictures is a non-profit video production company supported by volunteers, friends, and family.